Is it time to fill the people in about Nikola Topić, James?
It absolutely is. Nikola Topić is a 6'6" point guard with a 7-foot wingspan. That's reported. I think he got measured at a combine at like one of the combines in Europe.
I think it was like a Global Academy thing, like NBA Global Academy, something like that.
That's right. He played most of the season for a team called Mega, which is actually, if you'll remember the name, Nikola Jokic's old team. But he now plays for, I'm going to slaughter this name, for the Serbian team. But let's just call it Belgrade, okay? Crvena Zvezda Belgrade, which is one of the best teams in Serbia, which is where Nikola Topić has grown up and played. He's come through the academy there. He said it's always been his dream to play there. And he actually went out on loan to Mega this season before returning back, being basically recalled because he played so well, recalled from his loan back to Belgrade. He's 18 years old, super young. His dad was a former player, I believe. But has long been considered one of the best kind of young players in Europe. He's played for the Serbian junior team, and actually Serbia have always kind of had a bit of an issue for like their future point guard position, and he could be a guy who could fit that. And let's not also forget, the two Serbian guys on the Charlotte Hornets roster in Aleksej Pokusevski and Vasily Micic, who I'm sure will have, the Serbian basketball world can't be that big. There will be links there. So it could be a soft landing spot. He will have some knowledge or have some links to at least to people there. But he has had a completely breakout season this year. Per 36, he's averaging 19 points, 7 assists, 4 rebounds, 3.1 turnovers, which is pretty high, but still over like a 2-to-1 assist to turnover ratio. He is what I think some people are comparing him to some of the big point guards. I've seen LaMelo Ball used as a comp chase. I've seen it out there in the ether. I don't really love it for him. And again, maybe we can start the conversation here. I'm going to give you again 4 names, and LaMelo Ball will be one of them. And you tell me which one you think is closest. We have LaMelo Ball, pre-draft Markelle Fultz, okay, before the shoulder injuries, Tyrese Halliburton, and Spencer Dinwiddie. All big guards with a major playmaking aspect to it, but are also kind of like scoring threats as well. That's what I was trying to look at here. And, we can't forget like just 6'6" point guard with 7-foot wingspan. You're talking like elite measurables for that point guard position. And he is a natural point guard, not someone, pretending to be. He is absolutely pure point guard. So of those names, Chase, which do you think ring truest to you?
I think Tyrese Halliburton is probably the closest play style comparison to that one for me, because he is a threes and layups scorer. And especially in college, that's exactly what Tyrese Halliburton was. Like, the big knock on him when he was coming out of the draft was that his shot form was so bad that it wasn't really conducive to shooting off the dribble, and he wasn't going to be able to get shots off the dribble quick enough, or just in general to be able to shoot over NBA defenders and closeouts. And he wasn't a great athlete, so he wasn't going to be able to get downhill and finish at the rim in the same way. Like, Topić doesn't have those same mechanical concerns, but he definitely is a similar player that, like, he doesn't really have any sort of mid-range game, just due to the way that, like, his style of play, really. Like, he is a downhill playmaker also, which to maximize that, you have to like get all the way to the rim and collapse the defense like all the way, so you can create the better angles for those kick out passes and wraparounds and all that type of stuff that he's very good at. Like, he makes passes that have a high degree of difficulty look very easy, and he does it very often, which is extremely impressive for his age and the competition level in over in Serbia. He's playing in the EuroLeague playoffs right now, coming off of an injury too. So he's one of the few prospects that's still playing right now. But
and I want to give you credit for that, by the way.
Oh, absolutely. Like, that means quite easily.
He had a severe knee sprain. He could have quite easily sat out the rest of the season. His draft stock was safe. You come back, you don't play well, you risk really dropping down the draft boards, okay? Now, he said, I've seen the interview, that he was like, it's been my dream to play for Belgrade in like since I've been in the academy. Of course, I was always going to come back, especially if he goes in the NBA draft. He might never get the chance to play for them again. Okay. So I want to give him credit because he's come back and played, whereas we know there are some generally more American prospects who like to try and shut things down and manage this process. So I want to give him respect for that, for his love of the game.
I've got a comp for you as well. This is one that I was actually thinking about today while I was watching a lot of Topić film for this. This is only offensively also, but very, very reminiscent play style of Marcus Smart to me. Like off the dribble threes, like almost better at shooting off the dribble threes than he is off the catch. And then he gets downhill, finishes layups, and is like a very creative finisher on top of that. Like finishes some really high off the glass, like full arm extension, like type of like hook shot layups when he takes contact. Because right now he does not finish through contact very well. So he's definitely got to contort his body around a little bit for that stuff. But he does finish it well. And with touch, there are plenty of flashes of him being a good at the rim finisher, especially when he's getting downhill and handling the ball himself to get there. So that was one that popped out to me too. I was like, this is like exactly how Marcus Smart plays offense, because it's all like, it's everything he does is like flashy offensively. There's not really a whole lot of like little things. Everything he does is like with flair and creativity, and he does it well, but it's always got like a highlight reel-esque to it that I feel like many players have.
I would say, like, someone would be thinking LaMelo Ball when you say that. When you say highlight reel-esque, I would say some of LaMelo's playmaking, like, there's a lot of, like, flash there. And sometimes it's that not needed, but he's doing it for the flash. I do feel like with a lot of Topic's stuff, he's doing it because it just, like, it kind of makes sense. There wouldn't be another way for him to get the ball where he wants to get it. The Marcus Smart comp, I actually think he's a lot better on offense. I think he'll be a much better offensive player. I think he will be better at finishing at the rim. Per synergy, I think he was 68% at the rim as an 18-year-old playing for Mega, which is hugely impressive numbers in that sort of league. Uses his size really well. You talked about his shot, and you said he looks more comfortable pulling up. You're absolutely right. He shot 40.5% on pull-ups this year. Compare that to open catch and shoots. He shot 33%. And like contested or guarded catch and shoots, actually shot 8%. So, and if you actually look at his very deep attempts, these are like from 26 feet plus where he pulls up. He took 9 of them. He hit 3. So like shooting 33% basically on like extremely deep, tough shots. It's really, and a lot of those are coming off the dribble, very rarely off the catch. So he's definitely more comfortable shooting the ball off the catch, which I know it's tempting to look at him and go 6'6". He can play shooting guard. I just don't see that in his game. He has grown up with the ball in his hands from day one. He is a true point guard, and he's more comfortable shooting the ball. And he's also, I think, 85% from the free throw line. I just think he's actually a very good dribble pull-up shooter.
Yeah, and I especially agree with your point about him not being a 2 guard, despite like some indicators that he could play off ball. You really mitigate that passing ability when you take him when you take the ball out of his hands. Yeah. And as of now, like I feel like teams are going to be like, he's a type of player that teams would be comfortable being like, okay, you can shoot. Like if you're going to beat us with threes tonight, that's fine. We'll tip our hat to you. Go ahead. But we don't think that's going to happen. Like, I feel like if you put him at the 2, that's the type of player he is. If you put him at the 1 with his ability to shoot off the dribble, initiate offense, especially from like deep range, like he has like actual range on his jumper right now. And that's not like a thing that a ton of players do in those leagues, is take like off the dribble jumpers from deep range, but he does at least take some of them. Yeah. And it looks very comfortable
in his play style. Yes. No mid-range, deep shots. Like, yes. Quite un-European in some ways, you would say.
Oh, yeah, very much so. Like, the only thing to me that's like, reminiscent of him, like coming up in like the Euro academies and stuff like that, is that his passing style is very similar to like Ricky or Milos Teodosic. That's an even more apt comparison. It's very similar to that. But obviously, like you said, he's much more like technically sound. Like he's doing it for a reason. Like he has an exceptional feel for the game for an 18-year-old. And again, like Sar, who just turned 19, Topić is going to be 18, I think, until like mid-July. No, mid-August. So he doesn't turn 19 basically until a month before training camp opens. He's going to be so young all year. And like just getting him in an NBA system now, I feel like all it's going to take is a little bit of seasoning and for him to get used to like being an NBA initiator and running NBA sets. And obviously the terminology changes and stuff like that. And he's going to be able to play like point guard, at least in like a backup capacity, like right away, just because he can shoot off the dribble, gets downhill, makes good passes. Like that's not a really, you don't need a ton more from that from a backup point guard.
I think that the biggest thing will probably be like the cultural shift. Like
Yes.
Alex Sarr trained for 2 years in, overtime elite. His brother is in the NBA playing with OKC Thunder. Nikola Topić, I don't know, has ever been to the States. So, there is a big culture change there. And I don't know why. I think it's just because of the guy's face and he can't do anything about it. But he just looks quite like a little bit of a baby face. And like I just look at him and go, this kid has never been out of Serbia. Like the NBA is going to swallow him up. It kind of just looks that way. And I've got nothing to base that on whatsoever, just than my incorrect assumptions. Let's talk about his attacking rim. We talked about 68% at the rim. Here's something interesting for you. He's a right-handed player. Drives to the left 61% of the time versus 36% to the right. So massively prefers to go left. And he actually finishes a lot better there too. 65% finishing when going left versus 40% going right. Which is, again, kind of like anti what you would think. Like normally right-handed players like to drive right, like to get to the strong hand. He likes to kind of go that way and then finish like across the defender and use his length to finish over people. It's just a very kind of like interesting, subtle little thing. Again, something that makes him harder to guard than like the general night in, night out scouting report.
That is a very interesting thing to pick up. I feel like what maybe could be a reason for that is, say in his mind anyway, like he's not thinking like, I don't have much of a mid-range game, most likely anyway. I can't imagine that he thinks that about himself, like in the middle of the game. So from his perspective, like you have to give yourself the option to like take that outlet as a last, at least if it's like your last ditch thing. Like I'm going to try and make a pass for the rolling big man. I'm going to try and make a kick out to the weak side corner. I'm going to try and get all the way to the rim myself. But I do want to leave that one last like release valve option open and some sort of mid-range jumper. And for somebody who doesn't take them often, like to the left and like planting your right foot really hard and then stepping back and taking that style of jumper is probably, the easiest thing to do, even though that's like still a pretty difficult shot. But I don't know. I feel like that's just like thinking way too hard about it. But that is a very interesting thing to pick up on because obviously he doesn't do anything left-handed. You don't gain anything by being a righty going down the left side of the lane because you still have to make any one-handed pass is going to come with your left hand as well. So that is very interesting. But hey, a good finisher with his offhand as well because he is wildly efficient around the rim, and obviously it doesn't matter like what direction he's going or what hand he's finishing with either.
And while attacking the rim, and just in his play in general, he uses his eyes so well. Looks off defenders, leads defense to where he wants them to lead. A little bit like Micic, actually, where he manipulates the defense. And to have like that advanced understanding, normally that's something that comes a little bit later when the game slows down. But the fact that he's like at the age of 18 is just like looking guys off and just being able to play with the defense and move them around as he wants, like a conductor, is just so tantalizing to me. I think he is the real deal as a, finish at the rim, can shoot the ball, can pass the ball, has a decent handle. Obviously, there are turnover issues. We'll get to it. But as exciting point guard prospect that I can remember coming out of Europe in quite some time.
Totally agree. That I said Sarr was my number one. Topić is my number two. It sounds like we've got the two of them flip-flop. So this is definitely the top of the draft podcast for us right now.
Yeah. What are some of the biggest weaknesses? I think we've focused a lot on his strengths so far. What do you think are some of the biggest weaknesses of Topić? We talked about the catch and shoot. Is there anything else that really kind of stood out to you?
I mean, for lack of a better term, his weakness is his weakness. Like he, like Alex Sarr, has a lot of strength development to do. Like he is like barely over 200 pounds, I think, at 6'6". And I'm sure that they took that measurement with him holding a couple bottles of water or something as well to help weigh him down, because he does not even look that heavy. He gets bumped very easily. I think that shows up defensively. And I in a minute, we're going to combat the Topić is a poor defender narrative together. But first, I think like offensively, that's going to be maybe what brings down like his efficiency at the rim or something like that, is that lack of strength right now. And again, like he's 18. So how much, like if that's your main weakness, especially if that applies on both sides of the ball, like I feel like you said, like some guys just don't get that much stronger. But if it's a guy with that type of like frame and those physical tools at the top of the draft that seems to have a very high motor on the court and what I would imagine are pretty strong intangibles off the court as a worker in terms of like work ethic and their dedication and all that as well, just being this good at 18 indicates that you care a lot about basketball and how good you are. So I just picture him being like one of those guys that it does work out for, I guess, which there's no real like analytical reason for that. It's just kind of like placing stock into a player and then hoping it happens. But I would definitely bet on him to be one of those guys as opposed to, you know, some point like Trey Alexander or something, like a skinnier guard at the bottom of the draft, or Jared McCain or something. Like Topić, to me, like that's part of why he's this high, is that he does have the projection of being somebody that if he fills out, and which you can assume is going to be a lot easier in the NBA, it's going to make a massive impact on his ability to finish at the rim and do all the things that he doesn't do well right now.
Trust me, filling out in America is definitely easier. I can tell you that from experience.
I can 100%. I've experienced that over the last like 2 weeks myself. So Nikola, don't worry about that. We've got plenty of fast food, a lot of good pizza. You'll be fine.
I think, you know, the ball security is probably the biggest issue in the fouling. Over 3 turnovers per 36. Has a really kind of like has some really wild moments. And that is the kind of thing that is like going to probably get him benched like early in his NBA career, when he's just like turning the ball over here and there and overcomplicating things. But like it's not a simple thing just to say stop doing that, because also his wild moments are what make him special. And there's like opportunity cost between finding the right balance there. But if he can't ever find that balance and can't rein it back, then like, again, if it's a system where he needs to give the ball to like an not opposing, but a star in his team, and he has to play more off ball, I wonder exactly what his role would be there. But and then just the fouling, I think he averages like 3.8 fouls per 36 minutes, which is just a lot of fouls for a point guard. Like you're not the guy who should be rotating and helping as much there. Like he does get kind of beat a little bit. Obviously, being bigger, he's often guarding smaller people, but can guard up a little bit. And I thought he was protected quite a lot this year, being able to kind of switch a lot. He was switched off ball a lot, so he wasn't always guarding the primary ball handler. So I think there are definitely areas to just kind of tweak up, but nothing here that really jumps out to me is like won't like naturally improve. I don't know if Alex Sarr will definitely get a 3-point shot or will be able to put the ball on the floor, but I know Topić probably will be able to figure out a way to play defense without fouling as much, and probably will find how to cut out at least some of those turnovers out of his game, because of just that feel and basketball IQ. It's just gonna happen. And I think that's what, again, just to circle back, that's why I've got him 1, because I don't feel like there's much development that needs to happen for him to get on the NBA floor and for him to be able to contribute straight away. I just think his baseline is probably a little bit higher than Sarr's.
Yeah, that's a good point. He's probably he might be the best floor and ceiling combo of any player at like the very top of this draft right now. Like you really can't conceive or see a world where he just like fizzles out of the NBA and like doesn't make it to a second contract or, whatever term you would want to use for like a bust, I guess, at the top of the draft. I can't really see him being like the bust in this draft. There's one every year, but it would surprise me if it was him, just given like off the dribble shooting flashes, downhill playmaking, finishing at the rim, point of attack defense. Like those things are all very valuable, especially if you're a point guard doing all those things instead of
with
like a
elite
two guard
size
or a combo. Right. He's 6'6". He's athletic. He's light on his feet. Like that's just not the type of player that fails in the NBA. Like maybe he won't end up being great or worth a number 1 or number 2 pick or whatever. But that type of player just doesn't like bust out of the league anymore. I feel like all of those things are just way too valuable.
Let's finish up here with his fit with the Charlotte Hornets. Chase, I'll let you take this one.
So, like, this is so unfortunate because
there's an elephant in the room.
Yeah, I mean, his fit on the Hornets is not good because he's never going to start for the Hornets. So that's a problem. I mean, at least if you're putting him in the ideal world that James and I are envisioning him in, where he has the ball in his hands all the time and he is the team's offensive engine and point of attack defender, it's not going to happen with the Hornets because as much as I do like Topić, LaMelo, I still think has a significantly higher ceiling and floor and is currently a way better player, even being 3 years older than Topić is right now. So that path is just totally blocked for him. But if you put him in San Antonio,
if he's healthy,
if he's healthy, yeah, well, that's true. So maybe it is worth.
Someone had to say.
And hey, a lot of people, many mock drafts have the Hornets taking Reed Shepherd. If they end up at the top of the draft, you could definitely just apply that same logic to taking Nikola Topić, and which is something that I've brought up with a million times about the center position. It would certainly benefit them to have LaMelo as their starter and then LaMelo Light as their backup, which is essentially what would happen with Topić in Charlotte. But I mean, like just for his sake, like I want him to go to like San Antonio or some team that just doesn't have a point guard prospect right now with the ceiling that he has, so he can get the keys and just go and learn how to be an NBA point guard like right away with big minutes, the ability to play through mistakes, just getting tons of reps each night. Like that's the way to develop a player like him. I think that's like a little bit rough around the edges, but has some very clear foundation to build off of. So unfortunately that would be difficult in Charlotte, but man, would I like to see it in another universe.
Look, if this was NBA 2K or like some game in mind, I would just take him. I would just take but the reality of the situation is as soon as you were to draft Nikola Topić and LaMelo Ball is still in the Charlotte Hornets, you're just creating a ticking time bomb of when something is going to reach a point of, a climax of unsatisfaction. Either LaMelo Ball is unhappy. Look, you had a chance to add to the team and you added someone who plays my position or I can't really share the floor with. Nikola Topić has been going, do I really want to go play for the Charlotte Hornets and come off the bench for one of the worst teams in the NBA? That's not what I was thinking when I was going to the NBA. I don't imagine his camp would want him to come here. I don't imagine LaMelo Ball would want him to come here. I think he's the best player in the draft. So in the real world, there's just like so many political barriers that I think it would make it extremely unlikely. But let me tell you right now, if the Charlotte Hornets get the first overall pick in the draft lottery, I will probably be one of the few people sitting there saying, I think they should take Nikola Topić. And because I don't know how long LaMelo Ball is long for this franchise. I don't know. One, for health reasons, not even like counting anything else. And the other thing is what if they just say, you know what? We're not seeing LaMelo Ball making the progress as a leader. We're not seeing him mature how we want. We don't feel that basketball is the most important thing and that he's really committed to being on the floor, even if he's carrying a little injury. And maybe we can't ever create the culture we want to do if he's the head of our snake, and we want to do that. And if that's the case, then Topić is a perfect replacement. Now, it's just hard to know what the thought process is there, and the team will know LaMelo much more than we do. But I wouldn't rule it out, but I think the team probably would, because it just becomes the number one topic of conversation until you trade one of them. Every single year they are both there, and it makes both of their lives more difficult.
Why did this have to happen? Why couldn't the Hornets have the year that the number one pick projected is, a big man who has been playing the 5 his whole life and is built the exact same way almost as Mark Williams, and then a point guard who has the exact same play style as LaMelo. And it's just every time that the Hornets get the top pick, there's just like one little caveat, I feel like. But either way, we're gonna be fine because both of these guys are very good.
Nikola Topić better than Scoot in your pre-draft evaluation?
No, not even close. He's not.
Just asking the question.
I had Brandon Miller at 5.
Question.
Brandon Miller would be a comfortable number 1 for me in this class. Comfortable.
Yeah, I agree.
Especially with hindsight, but even in the moment when I didn't really like him all that much, this class at the top, like for all the gushing that we just did, is definitely still the narrative is true, unfortunately.